Okay, so we're live. First of all, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to an interview.
My pleasure.
Um, so before we get started into like the actual questions, I wanted to. I know that you obviously have your own Substack, uh, America's Fractured Politics. Would you like to tell the audience more about yourself and why you started this your Substack and what your background is?
Sure. My background is as an attorney and a Democratic activist. I've been involved in campaigns back since I was about 20 years old while I was in college. And I wanted to do this because I felt like I had something to say. And there wasn't really any forum that I could find that was good enough, I think, to deliver the message and to get it to the right audience. Um, I sometimes worry that, we talk to each other because we're all kind of like minded. And that is true. But I think it's important to exchange opinions and to learn from each other. So I think there's a lot to that. I started a podcast which is reaching different listeners, which I find to be useful as well. So I'm doing both at the same time.
That's great. Yeah, I think that I kind of started this Substack a little over a month ago. Started on October 3rd, and at first it was just kind of like I'm saying what I wanted to say. I didn't think it would actually. I wasn't even promoting it at all. And then a few weeks later, my grandmother suggested I start promoting it and enable paid subscriptions if people wanted to do that. And I was at 16 subscribers when I started that, and I just reached 1,600 today. So
Congratulations.
it's thank you. It's really surreal to like have like, and so I would definitely agree that like there's the whole like wanting to put your feelings out there that aren't really you don't feel like are currently in the conversation. Um, as someone who's a Gen Z person, but also was raised in rural America and also raised by boomers and all this different stuff, I and like working campaigns and different stuff like that. Like my perspective is not the same as other people. And yes, we might be reaching other Democrats or at least other pro democracy Republicans or whatever people are already kind of in that coalition. Um, but I feel like sometimes strategy and how to win the country back sometimes needs to be heard by fellow people in the coalition because sometimes the strategy is so people have so many different views on what the strategy needs to be or what they want it to be in an ideal world where it's separate from like what actually works, what actually how different perspectives are seen. Like obviously someone in a city might not necessarily understand rural America in the same way that someone
Right.
actually in rural America and vice versa. So I think that having everyone um listen to that and also understand like the different history of it of the country and how things have gone through different perspectives based on age, gender, sexuality, um, upbringing, all these different things matter. And I think that sometimes it's important just to hear from all those different perspectives, and that's kind of why I got started. And I definitely think that at the very least, it's cathartic to like hear other people kind of like, oh yeah, I I agree with that. Or I'm feeling the exact same way about this awful person that's in the White House. Like
Yeah, it's reaffirming. It's really reaffirming.
it's like oh, there's a lot of people just like us that like feel this way. Don't feel like they're. It makes you feel like oh, we're not alone. We're not crazy for thinking that this man is crazy. Um, so that's definitely reassuring. Um, so obviously, would there's a lot of crazy things happening lately. Um, we have a coalition that's very weird right now. Like we have, well, at least not coalition, but people that are kind of criticizing the president. From
Yeah.
like we have obviously from Zohar Mamdani to Marjorie Taylor Greene, all criticizing the president
We all
for
agree
various
it's all.
things. Yeah, we all agree he's awful, but yet he still has like a 38, 37 to 40%, depending on the polling thing, approval rating. And like Republicans seem to not like yes, you see like a few Republicans here and there saying like, no, I'm not gonna do that. No, we're not doing that. But like you still don't really see a drop in support of the politicians to like stand up to him in a significant way. Um
Well, he
and
still
like
inspires fear. He still inspires fear from people within the MAGA movement.
yeah,
The members of Congress who are beholden to the MAGA movement. So there's a real fear that it'll primary them. But my take is that it's beginning to slip a little bit. We're talking
I
about
would agree.
quitting, members having had enough. Um, I just think there's this critical mass that's developing that is weakening his hold on them. And while he'll always have that 38%, you can't win elections with 38%. And
No.
not on the ballot next year, which means the turnout is likely to be lower for for the midterm elections. And I think that's really important to remember because that really costs them votes that they desperately need to hold some of those seats.
Well, exactly. I think that, like, what you're saying is that typically, like, even if you don't think you're gonna do well in an election, typically the party that you don't think is gonna win, they don't say it openly like, "Oh, yeah, we're gonna lose." Like, obviously, you had Marcella Green in her resignation video saying, "Yeah, Republicans are gonna lose the midterms." Um, and I don't think they'd be saying that if they thought it was gonna be, like, a close election. They think it's gonna be a blowout, I think, and I would I would happen to agree with them, um, assuming they don't find a way to keep cheating their way to victory.
Yeah.
Um, but I honestly think that the way that the popularity, whether it be the Epstein files scandal, the healthcare debate, and the not knowing whether or not they wanna actually, like, make sure people live and everything, the economy, all these different things, I think that there's so much anger at these Republicans that even if they find ways to, like, try to, like, pretend to cheat in, like, Texas, Missouri, all these other states redistricting wise, I think there's enough voters to still defeat them.
That's been my argument that if we get a massive turnout, we can overrun the efforts to cheat.
Like, for example, Mississippi, they are a very gerrymandered state. They are very, like, they have a lot of anti-voting rights laws to, prevent minorities from voting, yet they flipped enough seats to break the supermajority in the state legislature. Georgia, I believe the Democrats won their first statewide race on the statewide level in 22 years by like 20 points. Now, granted, there were no other races statewide, so it was mostly the Democrats voting, sure, but you can't simply count that as only Democrats that were showing up to get that much of a victory.
No, Trump's
Um,
underwater by double digits, so that accounts for a lot of that.
and it's just it keeps getting worse for them, and I think that this and it's like you're seeing a lot of the people that are like hardcore MAGA, like Alex Jones just said today that like he said I'm seriously inches away from no longer supporting Trump. And obviously you have Marcella Green backing away somewhat, Thomas Nasty, you have all these people that are very hard right people. They're not gonna vote for Democrats. That's not gonna happen, but they might inspire the people that like them to just not vote.
Yeah.
And so you have the people that are not voting. So those are some of the people that Trump kind of brings out that normally don't vote in a normal election, which is going to be more like what we see in 2026 and 2028 once Trump's not on the ballot. Um, and then you're going to have the people that vote but switch back and forth between Democrat and Republican
Right.
that start flipping to Democrats or Democratic leaning independents in those states. And I think that that is a winning recipe for 2026.
Yeah.
I'm still do you think we have a shot at the Senate? Because I think that it's hard, but I think we do.
There's a shot. There is a shot now. I think with the numbers the way they are, there are a lot of senators that could find themselves in some trouble. I think there are several seats that I think people don't anticipate could be in play, will be in play under the electoral circumstances we're going to be confronting next year. I
What
think it's going to
Senate
be a very difficult time for a lot of these people.
like,
Uh,
I think that if things keep going the way they are, I think North Carolina is gonna flip. Um, Maine, I'm very unsure about Maine because the current primary is dividing the Democratic Party. Obviously, you have Graham Plattner, who is definitely getting the populist left element of the party and definitely getting a lot of the younger support and getting, like, the Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, that side of the party. But then you have Janet Mills, who is more of the establishment pick. Was recruited by Schumer and Gillibrand, and is like uh is being criticized for being older. Um,
I think either
and
one of them could beat Collins. I think she's worn out her welcome.
I want her to lose too. I don't. I wonder. if the primary is going to, it depends on, I guess, how brutal the two candidates go after each other in the primary. Because I think that if they end up going brutal against each other, whichever one makes it out of the primary will just be, it'll be harder to win. Uh, I think that, but I do think that Mills will could likely, oh sorry, Collins will likely lose to either Mills or Plattner if either's the nominee. I really do think that.
I do
I
too.
think that she also, there was a recent article that apparently there's a referendum to like that's being proposed to be on the main ballot that would restrict trans people from going to the bathroom in their the bathroom that they feel comfortable going into, and banning them from sports teams. And Susan Collins was one of the first people to sign that petition. And I think that that would be a huge mobilizer for Democratic and Independent votes
Oh, I think it
that
will.
feel like that's a just a cruel referendum that's probably not going to pass, but would definitely bring some people out. Obviously, it helps Susan Collins is like the far right people that might want to support her to bring them out to vote that might not necessarily want to because she portrays herself as this like anti-Trump moderate despite voting with him 90% of the time.
Hmm.
Um, I think I don't. One of the most annoying things in Congress is the fake moderates that portray themselves and are somewhat successful at portraying themselves as moderates to voters, whether it be Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, um, Mike Lawler in New York as a congressman, other people like that. Um, and it's just really frustrating because it's like they don't really do much moderate things in terms of like standing up to Trump, standing up to leadership. Yet they might come out occasionally when they know their vote or their statement's not going to matter, and
Yeah.
then they like, oh, we stood up against Trump. It's like, no, you didn't. You knew you were going to lose, so you did the right thing. And then, like for example, if you look at the Supreme Court nominees,
Yeah.
Collins voted for every single one of them, um, despite being pro-choice. So I think that Collins could likely, if the current environment stays the way it is, I think she'll lose. I think Iowa, um, I think Iowa has a really good shot of flipping because you have an open seat and you have amazing candidates on the Democratic side running, um, and you have a great governor candidate that could help pull the Iowa Democrat Senate candidate over the top if it gets that close.
Yeah.
Um, Texas, that's it's gonna be a close race, I think, obviously because it's Texas.
Well, if Paxton wins the nomination, I think he'll lose the election.
Oh, I think that especially I do worry somewhat. 'Cause I think that the current main two candidates that are running for Texas Senate are Colin Allred and James Tallarico. I know that there's talk that Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett might enter the race.
He's almost certain to enter the race, actually.
Yeah, that's what the statements I've heard her make recently
Yeah. I
get at.
Sunday.
What?
I heard her say that on Sunday.
Yeah, that's why. That's. I heard her say that she's gonna be making an announcement on what her plans are, which effectively means that she's running. Um, I'm skeptical on whether or not she could win the primate or the general. Um, I think that I think she's a good communicator in terms of like getting to the Democratic base and maybe to more other people in the coalition, but I don't know how much she would be able to get convincing people that voted for Trump to
Yeah.
vote for her. I'm scared because the thing is that's a big because the thing is you have to do that because like I think Trump won the state by 8%. You need to have a significant Trump support or Trump 2024 support to win that seat, even against someone who's unpopular and is that has a punchable face like Ken Paxton. You have to. I'm personally a Tallarico guy because I just think that he's like he's has good economic policy and he's able to like tackle the like religious issue and actually sound genuine when he's doing it to people that might not necessarily support someone else, but because he's going to seminary and all these different things that could actually help give him some.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that we definitely could win that race if Paxton could win the primary.
Hey, Eli, we have
Um.
questions that have come through that I want to try to answer.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so, what do you see? This is from Ron Keffer. What do you see are the key moves Democrats must make to capitalize on opportunities in 26? And I think that what Ron just said a second ago is that any Democrat who doesn't win in 26 will have squandered a marvelous opportunity. I agree wholeheartedly with that, and the reason
I
is
think
the
I
reason
would agree with that.
is that you've got an opportunity here to paint them as being completely unconcerned about the economy. We have a chance to paint ourselves as being very much engaged with the needs of voters on the economic front and on other fronts. And we have a chance to paint ourselves as people that have solutions rather than people who want to come and fight and engage in retribution and do all of the other things. So
No, I fully agree. No, I fully agree with Ron. I think that you have a situation right now where obviously last election Democrats lost the voting the middle class voting block, and we would no longer consider the part of the working class. And honestly, I was worried about how we were going to get that a part of the party back to us. And I think that Trump has unfortunately given us that opportunity to do that in one election and cement that because Trump has just he's called inflation a hoax, or he just said it's not actually happening. And there's so many things you can lie about in politics. There are, and you can get away with a lot of them. The one thing you can't lie about in politics for long is the economy, because people can feel that, they see it, they look at their bank accounts, they know they can't afford groceries.
exactly.
Um, so you have the economy, you have then the healthcare debate, which
Mhm.
Republicans fumbled. Now, obviously, Democrats didn't do a great job towards the end, getting the touchdown on that issue in terms of kind of letting Republicans kind of get away with it without any cemented vote. But
I think it's going to lose, by the way. I think the vote will lose, and the Republicans going to own the issue.
and the thing is, my view is I'm upset the Democrats agreed to that deal, but I also think that in the end it'll help Democrats in the long term politically.
It'll hurt a lot of people, though.
Yeah, and that's why I was skeptical. That's why I was critical of the deal, because it's going to hurt a lot of people, but in the end, unfortunately, it's going to make Republicans look like they just hate the American people in terms of help it, and prefer the help the billionaire class, which has already been clear. But I think that I think that there's a lot of great Democratic candidates currently running for House and Senate across the country, whether they are progressive, moderate, centrist, or independents running as independents, and could be caucusing as a Democrat if they win potentially. Um,
You got a question there from Ron.
yes, I was just about to answer that. So, I think the hardest. I think that young people, there's a real feeling that we do not. Um, there's not a path to like the successes and the basic living conditions that our parents and our grandparents told us about when we were growing up, and that we've read about. And I think that if Democrats can speak to that in a way, and the Republicans aren't even trying at this point to speak to it anymore. They were doing it in the last election, but I think Democrats need to first of all start going on the different podcasts. They've been doing a good job of doing that the last 10 months, like going on Joe Rogan, going on like Midas Touch is doing a great job of mobilizing a lot of people.
Mhm.
Um, I think that it's not that young people have voted for Trump because like we want to vote for Republicans or we want to vote for Trump. It's just they're so angry, and I think that they realize that they made a huge mistake in terms of voting for him. And I think that Democrats just need to show that they have a message rather than just running against Trump. I think that's the biggest issue that we had in 2024 and other elections. We have to have a message that we're supporting rather than just what Republicans are doing against them. Is like, what are we going to do for them if we get into office?
Yeah.
I think that, and I think that you see candidates like James Talarico in Texas. You see candidates like Roy Cooper, even though he's not young, he is talking about these issues. He's
Yeah.
Graham Plattner and somewhat Jana Mills in Maine talking about this. And Jana Mills has been talking about it more as she's entered the race and entered the race more. Um, and you're seeing it with Mallory McMorrow in Michigan. Um, and the other thing is, and I think that you're seeing a lot of these candidates do this because they know that they have to get their party mobilized, but they also have to get new voters in from 2024 that voted otherwise, especially in states like Texas, Iowa, Alaska, North Carolina, Maine, and other states that we might need to flip if we were to win the Senate and obviously the House. I think that there's a very good chance that the Texas this gerrymander. I don't think it's going to get overturned because I don't think the Supreme Court's going to rule that way because I just don't think they are going to do anything that makes sense because they're just going to do whatever the Republicans want them to do.
Yes, they will.
So I think that, but I still think that whatever this, I think it's like 5 seats that they try to get. I think that they assume that Latino vote from 2024 is going to stick to the Republican Party. And if the New Jersey governor's race and the Latino population major shifts like 20 points in almost every precinct
Hmm.
to Mike Michelle tells us anything about is that that is not going to be the case. We don't know now is going to shift, but it's not going to. I would not be surprised if one or two of those seats that they're trying to, they said they're guaranteed to win, Democrats win. I would not be surprised by that at all.
One one thing I wanted to say was that the California case is going to be interesting because they're going to take up the California case. If they rule in favor of Texas, how can they not rule in favor of California? Now, I think they
Well,
can probably find a way to do it, but they'll have to be ruling against a referendum of the populace. So it's going to be
because the
difficult
thing is,
to justify.
Gavin Newsom did it in the strongest way possible because he was like, okay, we're going to pass this thing in the legislature. We're going to put it before the voters, and they're going to decide. And they decided pretty overwhelmingly when there was no other thing on the ballot besides this one referendum. I don't think. I personally think that because of the pushback, that the Supreme Court will probably rule that Texas will stay, but so will California. I think that will probably be what happens. Now, don't get me, I wouldn't be surprised if they rule one the Texas can stay and California would is thrown out, but I just don't think that that's gonna happen.
Well, if it does
Um,
happen, people should line up at the Supreme Court and not leave.
I think that you're seeing the Supreme Court ruling that they are not going to take the gay marriage case to overturn gay marriage. I think that the fact that that happened a day or two after the November elections a few weeks ago, I don't think that was a coincidence. I don't. I think that that was. I think they knew that that would not look good, even if they took the case. I think they try to. I think they're trying to. They try to when they think that they're losing popularity, they try to do a few cases that they think will make them look more nonpartisan, and then they go back to their Republican ways. And I think that the California case is gonna be one of those. Um, I obviously we'll see what happens when it gets to that thing. We've not heard the oral arguments. Um, so I don't know. I know the tariffs are likely going to be overturned. It seems based on the oral arguments from the Supreme Court a few months ago.
Hmm.
Um, which I don't trust. I'm sure Trump will find a way to turn that Republican win by getting the tariffs overturned to find a way to put them back in another form and then screw Republicans over that way. But I think that Gavin Newsom did a really good job in terms of messaging the referendum as a people focus rather than Texas's, which was a legislative focus that was shut out from the public. Um, I have mixed views on Gavin Newsom as a political candidate, but I think he's done a really good job of changing people's minds on him regarding how he's handled Trump, whether it be through his creative media campaign that he's done or his or Prop 50. I think that those things have really helped his chances in
Yeah,
2028.
yeah.
Because the thing is, we've seen a lack sometimes of we've seen more of it, but we've seen a lack of Democrats willing to fight. Um, and I think Gavin Newsom kind of inspired a lot more people to fight more, and we've seen a lot more sense do that. Um, Andy Bashir's been doing a really good job of that in
J.B.
Kentucky.
Pritzker has as well.
Oh my God, J.B. Pritzker is amazing. Like J.B. Pritzker's been getting under Trump's skin because today at the when Trump was pardoning the turkeys, he called Pritzker a fat slob. So clearly, Pritzker's getting under his skin.
Yeah, he is.
Wes Moore is doing a great job in Maryland. You definitely see Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania. Gretchen Whitmer is being talked about. I haven't really heard much from her, one way or the other, recently, and that's been disappointing, honestly. But I think you're seeing a lot of Pete Buttigieg. You're seeing a lot from Chris Murphy in Connecticut.
Yep.
You're seeing a lot of amazing candidates. And the thing is, I'm focused, I'm watching all these candidates to see like what they do in the next year and a half to judge what I think of them. Um, for 2028, I'm not focused on 2028 because I want to make sure we have a successful 2026 and make sure that we fight whatever happens between now and 2026. But I think that everyone should be attentive to what's happening with all these candidates and what they're saying, what they're doing, who they're supporting, who they. I think that who they hire, who they don't hire, who they endorse, who they don't endorse, and all that stuff is going to be very indicative of what type of presidential candidate they would be. And I think that because they're all auditioning,
Yeah, they are.
whether and things, I personally know that they are. And also, we have to look at what they did in the past when they didn't think that people were watching them. Because right now, they're going to do all the things that they think the primary base wants them to do because they know they're running for president. They know everyone else knows they're running for president.
Yeah.
But I think that we have to look at what they've done in the past. But I think there's a lot of great candidates out there, and I'm not. Thing is, I can't. The thing is, I'm not saying the Republicans can't win in 2028. I just know that I'm not really. I don't feel like there's any. Um, I don't hear. Um, I don't see many inspiring candidates on the Republican side that I think are like amazing candidates on the Republican side. I don't think JD Vance is
Because
gonna.
there aren't any. JD Vance is not going to be president of the United States. Excuse me. JD not going to be president of the United States.
I don't even think.
Not
I
in
don't even know if
years.
I don't even know if he will be the nominee. Frankly, I think that I would not be surprised if he loses the nomination because of the gaining influence of the Nick Fuentes Nazi wing of the party. I'm not sure if he could even win, um, unless he divorces Usha. That's the only way I could see him winning the primary if Fuentes keeps getting influence in the party. Um, Vance has I would say Vance has a very political advantage to actually shut down Nick Fuentes now, to avoid that type of messiness
We
in
won't
a
do.
2020. He's very clear he's not going to do it, but it just doesn't make political sense for him not to because um so I think that JD Vance is not very inspiring. I think Ted Cruz is going to run. I don't think he's very likable, and also there's questions about whether or not he would even qualify. Given I don't know, I know he was lived in Canada for a while. I don't know if he was what the situation there is.
Rubio
Um,
will run.
Rubio's going to run. It seems, even though he reported that he's probably just going to endorse Vance.
I
If
don't.
Vance somehow, the reporting is that it'll be like a Vance Rubio ticket if Vance is the nominee.
I don't think
Uh,
Rubio will accept that. I think Rubio wants to be president.
yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Ted Cruz is probably going to run. I wouldn't be surprised if Tucker Carlson runs himself. Um, Nikki Haley or somewhat wing of the moderate side of the party will run. They won't really get anywhere. Glenn Youngkin will probably try to put his hat in the ring. Um, um, I think that I think that Vance. We'll see how Vance does because I think that he has a situation where we don't know what's going to happen. Vance could be as someone just pointed out, Vance could be the president by 2028. Um, and I think that would help him. I think potentially, or
Not
it could hurt him.
not enough. Not enough. I don't think any Republican can be elected in 2028.
I think that if things keep going the way they are and Democrats don't screw it up, I think that we'll have a really good chance of winning in 2028. And Republicans do not. Especially since they have no interest in actually taming this Nazi wing of the party. I think it's gonna things because what is so interesting about the people moving away from Trump and MAGA, it's not like they are moving towards a moderate. It's all the people that think that he's abandoned MAGA principles and they're actually more far right. Like it's the Marcella Greens, it's the Alex Jones, it's those people that are leaving. It's not the normal ish. It's not like it's Mitch McConnell saying we need to get rid of Trump. It's Marcella Green, and I think that the party's more likely to not move towards the center if Trump loses steam within MAGA, and I think that is not a good path for them because I don't think that going more to the right is going to work. Um, the Republican brand, I would agree with Ron, is
is real.
definitely real. It's now doesn't mean that they can't win in 2032. Doesn't mean that they can't win 2020 2030. It doesn't mean that they won't win elections in swing states. It does mean that I do not think that they'll be winning majorities, and I don't think they'll be winning um the presidency in the short term, at least. Um, I think that if you're looking at 2026, I think that we'll at least gain a few seats in the Senate if we don't take the Senate. Um, and if we don't win the Senate in 2026, I think we'll definitely win in 2028.
Yeah.
Because I think we'll probably be like, if we don't win the Senate, it'll be like 50-50 or 51-49 Republican majority. And that's a very weak majority. And I think that, let's say, a Supreme Court justice retires or something, if it's a 51-49 Republican or 50-50 Republican, you're more likely to get a more moderate, less fanatical Supreme Court justice just because you need to avoid losing people like Murkowski and people that aren't running for re-election potentially that
Right.
are. And I think that it's very key that we at least get to we have to at least win North Carolina and Maine or North Carolina and some other state. I personally think we could make it 50-50 or we could actually take the majority. I think that that's certainly not out of reach.
I'm betting
Um,
majority. I have a feeling we'll win a majority. Hey, I've only got about 10 minutes left. Do you want to shoot some questions at me?
yeah, definitely. So I think that I I guess the question I had was kind of what do you think Democrats should be doing that they aren't doing right now um, to capitalize on the moment, the fact that Republicans seem to have a dead brand right now. What do you think Democrats should be doing that they're not doing right now?
Develop a brand by basically developing an alternative elevator pitch to the people. Make it clear that we care about the economic issues, but also make it clear that we have a plan going forward. And we don't need to reduce these to 10-point plans or expand them into position papers, which is something we do very well and something we shouldn't be doing. But to keep the message very simple. Spanberger and Cheryl did a good job of that. I think that Mamdani is doing a great job of it. I think that it differs from district to district, and I think each district has to be approached based on its demography and different members of Congress, different candidates who are running for open seats will know exactly what plays there. But the message ought to be consistent. We care, we have a plan, and stop trying to say we're not Donald Trump because nobody wants to hear that. I think they figured out themselves that they don't want Donald Trump. They want to know what Democrats are going to do for them.
No, I fully agree with you. What there's a lot of talk right now about who the future of the Democratic Party is. Some people say it's Abigail Spanberger. Some say it's or like that wing of the party, Mike Shale, the wing of the party, which is more or less the same wing of the party, or Mamdani's the future of the party, or someone totally different is. Do you think that any of those are the future of the party, or do you think that we should have a future of the party be like policy and like a brand rather than a person necessarily?
Well, it's almost impossible for it not to be a person. Everybody coalesces around a candidate, and that candidate becomes the spokesperson of the party. It happens every time. It happened with Obama. It happened with Biden. What I think is likely to happen is that somebody emerges in 2028 that represents a consensus opinion of where America ought to go. I think there's a faulty conversation going on around, are you a democratic socialist? Are you a progressive? Are you a centrist? I'll confess to saying I'm not sure what a centrist means. I think you have policies, and those
Yep.
policies represent a platform that you can run on. And if you stick to those policies, the person who ends up becoming the candidate will have ground to run on. And I
Yep.
think at that point, you'll have taken the best ideas from every sector of the Democratic Party and turned them into something that represents a winning message. Now, I wouldn't say turn it into mush so you're not saying anything anymore, but you've got to come up with a coherent message. And I think that the primary process, which we really didn't have in 2016 or in 2020, We need to
Or
have a
2024.
primary process.
We also didn't really have one at all in 2024, so that
No,
kind of. So I guess my question is, so talking about the primary, there's a lot of talk obviously about, there's a recent proposal by, I think Jamie Raskin has been talking to the DNC about doing ranked choice voting for the Democratic primary.
I'm all for
There
it.
Don't you think that, my main concerns about ranked choice voting for the Democratic primary is the amount of time it would take to, like, um, count and, like, get, everything all the results out, and, another concern is I think that, and maybe I don't understand ranked choice voting fully, but I think that, like, one of the perks of seeing these primaries kind of play out the way they have been is that you see, like, oh, this is who this person's, like, this is where, like, you kind of have that ability to have, like, the upset. And I feel like sometimes what happens is, like you might have, like, for example, Joe Biden in South Carolina, or I think it was, Pete Buttigieg in Iowa that year also. Um, and, like, if you have all these candidates, like, saying, you might have, like, someone who's more considered the front runner do better, and, like, just become the easier it'll be. Maybe, like, would you, like, what is your reasoning, I guess, for supporting a ranked choice voting?
I think it produces a result that's much more consistent with what the majority of the people want. It's worked very well in Alaska, as Ron said,
Yep.
and I think that the extremists don't like it, as Ron just said as well, because it basically freezes them out. It's a way of getting the extremists from both sides out of the way and producing a candidate that represents the broadest variety of the populace. So I think it can work. I don't think it's as cumbersome as it's made out to be, and I think it produces a better result that's worth doing for that reason.
And also another conversation that's being had about 2028 is the primary schedule, about, like, which states go first, which states don't, what states get prominence and what states don't. I think that obviously, like, it's been clear that Iowa's not gonna probably get the first slot again. That seems to be pretty certain. Um, but there's a lot of talk about whether or not South Carolina will stay first or not. What do you think? Do you think there's any states that should be, like, the first four before we get to Super Tuesday? Like, which do you think are the most should be the first?
I don't have an opinion on that. I think that we probably should have clusters of primaries rather than have a couple in the beginning that skew the result. I mean, you win Iowa and New Hampshire, great. You get momentum as a result of that, but that's not representative of the entire American population.
No, no, I would agree with that.
So I think that and Paul just said something interesting.
Yes,
Look for a safe.
yes. 'Cause I think that that's even a thing I think Obama has been trying to fight also since he left office, was that Democrats kind of assumed that Obama was just gonna come save them every time there's an election, and Obama's just like, "No, I'm no longer in office, like, you need to do your thing. You need to create your own brand, you need to create your own thing separate from me, because 'cause I'm not always gonna be here. I'm not on the ballot."
Yeah, we need someone who can be president and do president. There are some
Yeah,
people who like the ceremonial aspect of the job, like Donald Trump. There are
yep,
some wonks like Obama who like to do the policy part of it. We need somebody who can do the whole thing, somebody who can represent us internationally, somebody that can speak to people most importantly. Roosevelt had, he's a patrician, but Roosevelt had an incredible way of communicating with people, so that they understood that he cared about them and that they mattered and that their needs were being met because he was on the job 24 hours a day. Now, that may not have been true, but he conveyed that impression. And Kennedy conveyed an impression as well, that we were moving forward, that we were
yes.
a generation. You have to
So
have a theme. You've got to
so
have
do
a
you think
people can get behind.
can you think of anyone at this moment? Obviously, we don't know who's gonna run and who won't run and what will change, but who do you think right now would be a good candidate that would do the things you just laid out?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say JB Pritzker.
I would agree with, I things I do you think that the parts of the party that just will say, like, even though, like, obviously he's pro, taxing the rich and all these different things that to, cut down on corporate America, do you think that people in the Democratic primary that are more purist and more, focused on purity will vote for a person that is technically a billionaire?
I think he can convey an image of caring and of being a populist effectively enough to obviate the idea that he's a billionaire. There's
Like,
something about the American public that loves billionaires, and I don't
no,
think
no, there is. The thing is, I will say that I think that FDR also, keep in mind, like FDR, one of the biggest presidents in terms of getting Democratic agenda items done. He himself, he wasn't poor. He was quite rich himself.
neither
So,
was Ken
what?
neither was Kennedy poor. Kennedy was wealthy.
I'm saying, so some of our best presidents have been best for working class and poor Americans have not been those in those tax brackets. So I think
We
that,
like a little royalty in our in our presidents here.
and I think that's fine. I think we just need to get rid of the purity test that we put in our primaries and put in our politics in the Democratic Party. Like, clearly, Republicans have no purity. They're just like, if you're a Republican, you run. Like, unless you don't support Trump. Like, we don't care about exact things. As long as you are pro-Trump, we don't care. And obviously, we should have some sort of like basic standards. But like, I think that telling, oh, you can't be a billionaire, you can't be this, you can't be that, or you have to have this policy position on every single issue. That I don't think that that's really long lasting.
I think it'll sort itself out. I think what will happen is candidates will run, and there'll be multiple candidates for each seat, and the public will sort it out.
I would agree with that. And so, but yeah, I just wanted to say thank you again for joining and answering these questions, and obviously thank you all for joining and asking questions and putting your opinions in the chat. Um, obviously, I encourage everyone to subscribe to Mark and everything. And
And to you too.
again, thank you. It was great to talk to you. It was great to discuss the crazy world we live in right now.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Of course. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.